Joining me now is Democratic Representative Keith Ellison of Minnesota, an early Bernie Sanders supporter who today endorsed Hillary Clinton. And so you know a thing or two about binary choices. Let me start with that. I thought that was such a good question to Paul Ryan. You have said he has said racist things. He has comported himself in a racist manner. How can you support him? And Paul Ryan says, yes, but otherwise it's Hillary Clinton. What's your reaction to that as someone who has to work with Paul Ryan? That's a colleague of yours.
You know, I like Paul Ryan. And to a certain extent, I feel bad for him. But this is a moment of moral choice. And if he says that Hillary Clinton is worse than a openly racist, Muslim-hating misogynist who wants to build a wall to exclude Mexicans, who thinks that a judge, an American judge, because of his Mexican lineage, cannot be fair to him. If you're saying that Hillary Clinton is worse than all that, then I just think that that just is ridiculous, it's absurd, and it really starts to damage the speaker's credibility. And I don't say that easily, because I think that, you know, Paul Ryan is, you know, could be a great leader for our country, but I think that he is in a moral choice moment, and so far, he's choosing wrong.
You know, I wanted to go through some of the polling on race in the country right now, because obviously, you know, race and is always a subtext in American politics. Sometimes it's just right out there in front, and it sort of fluctuates. And in the era of Obama, it's been impossible to avoid in any day. It's probably true for the country's entire history. Polls showing Americans who worried a great deal about race relations has spiked recently, particularly in the wake of the sort of Black Lives Matter movement. Percentage of Americans who view race relations as generally bad. Today, 69%. Last year, it was 38%. So how do you're someone who represents black, white citizens, people of color, people of all faiths. How do you think about this, the politics of this in this particular moment?
You know, this is a moment where leaders just have to call for human solidarity. We have to focus on what we all share. So when I go back to the 5th Congressional District of Minnesota, which is Minneapolis and the suburbs around it, including St. Anthony, by the way, I talk to constituents about what matters to them most, and I listen to them. And what I hear people talking about are things that anybody of any color or any religion or any sexual orientation can get with. They cannot earn a decent living if they're working class folks. They're worried about retirement if they're in their 40s and 50s. They're worried about sending their kids to college. If we focus on what really matters, we can get there. Now, you have to talk about the issue of race, but you can talk to I can talk to white constituents about racism if I at least acknowledge that life is not a crystal stair for them either. Right. So if I talk, so if I say, look,
you're not giving them a long lesson in their privilege when you're in those interactions.
Well, how do you go to somebody white living looking at a foreclosure of their home and tell them that it's worse for African Americans? They're like, well, maybe so, but I'm the one looking at homeless. So you gotta talk to people about the fact that all Americans of all colors this economy's not working for any of us. And, you know, the fact is that yes, statistically, African Americans and Latinos are getting hit harder, but it is something that we can have real solidarity across racial lines on, to raise the minimum wage, to lower the cost of the student of going to college, to make sure there's real consumer protection. We have a chance for racial solidarity, because all of us, unless you're in the top 1%, are really struggling in this economy. Like you take, for example, the environmental movement's a big deal in my district. You know, you might say, yeah, more African Americans statistically are suffering from asthma and air pollution-related illnesses, but there's a lot of white folks, a lot of white kids with inhalers. So you just got to talk to the reality of everyone, not exclude anyone, and make sure that people know that you care about them too. And I think if you do that, we can get there.
All right, Representative Keith Ellison, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for your time tonight.
Yes, sir.